It is my greatest joy to introduce you to the future of the Castellano legacy, my son's first child. Victoria Castellano's voice rang through the massive ballroom as I pushed open the gilded doors. The weight of my 3-year-old twins pressed against my sides. Lily on my left, Lucas on my right, their small bodies clinging so tightly I was practically carrying them both as we stepped inside. The room fell silent. 300 people in designer gowns and custom tuxedos turned to stare at the woman in the too cheap dress holding 2 dark-haired children who looked exactly like the billionaire standing on that stage. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, reflecting off champagne glasses frozen halfway to painted lips. A string quartet's violins trailed off mid-note. And there, elevated above the crowd on a platform draped in white roses, stood Victoria Castellano holding an infant like a prize, her mouth still open from her grand announcement. Her eyes locked onto mine across the sea of silk and diamonds. I watched recognition flash across her face, followed by fury, then something I'd never seen in Victoria Castellano's eyes before, fear. "Hello, Victoria," I said, my voice cutting through the silence like glass. "Sorry, I'm late to the family reunion." Welcome back to another powerful story, Golden Family. If you've ever had to fight for what's rightfully yours, you won't want to miss a single moment of this journey. Like this video now and subscribe if you haven't already, because this story is about to unfold in ways you never imagined possible. Now let's get back to the story. 3 years earlier, I stood in a cramped living room, surrounded by empty moving boxes and the scent of fresh paint. Victoria Castellano sat across from me, her designer suit pristine despite the dusty surroundings. 2 military officers flanked her, their expressions professionally somber. "The attack was swift," Victoria explained, sliding papers across my IKEA coffee table. "James was helping build a school. Insurgents targeted the compound. There were no survivors. There were no survivors." My hand trembled as I touched the death certificate. My husband's name, printed in cold black letters. "I don't understand," I whispered. "We just spoke yesterday." "The military is handling all arrangements," Victoria continued as though I hadn't spoken. "For security reasons, there won't be a public funeral. Too dangerous, considering the Castellano name." I pressed my palm against my still flat stomach. "But the baby will be taken care of," Victoria finished. "Financially, at least. But Maya, you must understand. James had enemies, business rivals, political adversaries. If they discover he left behind a pregnant widow." One of the officers nodded gravely. "We've seen retaliation against families before, ma'am." That night, after they left, I collapsed on the bathroom floor. Screamed until my voice gave out. Clawed at the tiles until my fingernails broke. And 2 days later, I was in this small house in a town 3 hours away, with a new bank account, a stack of non-disclosure agreements, and a hole in my chest where my heart used to be. "Mommy." Lucas took my bunny again. Lily's indignant voice pulled me from memory. I blinked, focusing on the breakfast table where my twins sat with matching bedheads and pouty expressions. "Did not. I just wanted to look at it," Lucas protested, clutching a well-worn stuffed rabbit. "Give it back, please," I said, pouring more cereal into their bowls. "Lily, remember our sharing rule?" "5 minutes," she mumbled, watching the clock on our kitchen wall with laser focus. At 3 years old, my twins were already distinct personalities inhabiting identical faces. Both had their father's dark curls and deep brown eyes. Both had his dimples when they smiled. But where Lucas was bold and curious, Lily was thoughtful and cautious. "After breakfast, we need to pick out clothes for Miss Rivera's class picture," I reminded them, sipping lukewarm coffee. "And then grocery shopping. And then grocery shopping." Our routine was simple but stable. Preschool 3 days a week. My remote graphic design job while they napped. Trips to the park when weather permitted. Story time every night featuring tales about their brave, kind father who'd helped people around the world. I never told them how I woke crying some nights, still reaching for James's side of the bed. Or how I sometimes caught myself checking my phone, half expecting to see his name on the screen. After 3 years, grief had become a quieter companion, but it never truly left. "Can we get ice cream?" Lucas asked, milk dribbling down his chin. "Not today, buddy. End of the month budget." He nodded solemnly. At 3, my son already understood financial limitations better than some adults. After breakfast, I settled at my laptop while the twins played in the living room. The design project needed finishing by noon, and then we'd head to the grocery store with our carefully planned list. Just another Tuesday. Until it wasn't. An email notification pinged. A former colleague from the design firm where I'd worked before the twins, one of the few connections I'd maintained after Victoria relocated me. Subject: Isn't this your James? My finger hovered over the link. Some celebrity doppelganger? Probably. It had happened before. I clicked. The Castellano Foundation Gala. Benefiting children affected by war. And there he was. James Castellano, looking slightly older but unmistakably alive, standing beside a stunning blonde woman in a silver gown. The caption identified her as Vanessa Pierce Castellano, wife of Foundation Chairman James Castellano, recently recovered from injuries sustained during humanitarian work overseas. The room spun around me. My laptop slid from my knees onto the couch cushion. Mommy? Lily's voice seemed to come from far away. Your face is doing the scary thing. I forced myself to breathe, to smile, to function. I'm okay, sweet girl. Mommy just saw something surprising. While the twins returned to their game, I devoured every word of the article. James Castellano, rescued after being held captive. Suffered trauma and memory loss. Married society darling Vanessa Pierce 18 months ago. Recently spotted at several high-profile events following his remarkable recovery. Memory loss. The words echoed in my mind. My fingers shook as I typed his name into the search bar. Article after article appeared, most from the past year. His return to the business world. His marriage. His foundation work. Not one mention of a previous marriage. Not one mention of me. My phone rang, startling me. The same colleague. Maya? Did you see it? I thought I was hallucinating, but that's him, right? Your husband? I swallowed hard. Yes. But they said he died overseas. I know what they said. My voice sounded strange, distant. I need to make some calls. After hanging up, I sat frozen, staring at the twins at James's perfect miniature replicas playing innocently on my living room floor. What do you do when the foundation of your grief shatters? When the person you mourned walks back into the world without you? I called the only person who would have answers. Victoria's executive assistant answered on the second ring. Mrs. Castellano's office. This is Maya Carson. I need to speak with Victoria immediately. Yeah. A pause. I'm sorry, Miss Carson, but Mrs. Castellano isn't taking calls from. Tell her it's about James. And his children. Tell her if she doesn't speak to me now, my next call will be to the New York Times. 5 excruciating minutes later, Victoria's cold voice filled my ear. Maya, this is unexpected. He's alive. The words came out raw, accusatory. A long silence. I see you've been looking at tabloids. Don't you dare. My hand gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles whitened. I saw him. In the foundation photos. With his new wife. One. Victoria sighed, the sound dripping with rehearsed patience. Maya, you signed agreements. Very specific agreements about contact and disclosure? You showed me a death certificate. My voice rose sharply before I remembered the twins. I lowered it to a harsh whisper. You brought military officers to my door. You moved me away from everyone I knew. You told me my husband was dead. And now you know differently. What exactly do you want, Maya? Money? More money? The casual cruelty stole my breath. I want the truth. I want to know why you erased me from his life. Why you're pretending his children don't exist. His children? Victoria repeated, her tone shifting subtly. You have proof of this claim? You know I do. You were there for the ultrasound. You saw the birth certificates. You've been sending support payments for 3 years. Another pause. When Victoria spoke again, her voice had chilled further. James suffered severe trauma. Traumatic brain injury. His recovery has been selective. My heart clenched. What does that mean? It means, Maya, that my son remembers his childhood, his education, his business. But certain periods of his adult life remain inaccessible to him. The implication hung in the air between us. He doesn't remember me, I whispered. No. And his doctors advised against forcing memories that might trigger trauma responses. His new life has been carefully constructed for optimal recovery. Constructed by you. The pieces clicked into place with terrible clarity. You used his memory loss to erase me, to replace me with someone you approved of. Victoria didn't deny it. Vanessa comes from a good family. Her father sits on the boards of 3 major banks. She understands our world in ways you never could. And what about his children? Did you erase them too? James believes he has no children, Victoria said flatly. And soon, that will change. Vanessa is expecting. The announcement is scheduled for next week's foundation gala. The room tilted dangerously. James's new wife was pregnant, while his existing children he didn't know existed, played just feet away from me. I'm coming to see him, I said. That would be unwise. Your agreement specifically. I don't care about the agreements. I don't care about the money. James deserves to know he has children. Victoria's laugh was short, sharp. And you think appearing out of nowhere won't damage his recovery? The doctors have warned that shocking revelations could trigger severe psychological regression. Was she lying? I had no way to know. He's my husband, I said quietly. No, Maya. He was your husband. Now he's Vanessa's. The life you shared with James is gone. Accept that reality and move on. The call ended. I sat motionless, staring at the twins, at the living proof of a love that apparently no longer existed in their father's mind. What would you do if the person you loved most couldn't remember your name? If the life you built together had been erased by someone else's design? That night, after tucking the twins into bed, I researched everything I could find about James's condition. Traumatic brain injury. Selective amnesia. The psychology of memory recovery. Article after article confirmed what Victoria had implied. Shocking someone with forgotten memories could potentially trigger severe psychological distress. But other sources suggested the opposite, that familiar faces, voices, and experiences could help recover lost memories. That the brain sometimes needed prompting to reconnect severed neural pathways. I had no medical training. No way to know which approach was right. But I did know one thing. My children deserved their father. And James deserved to know his children existed. For 3 days, I attempted legitimate contact. I called James's office repeatedly, only to be blocked by gatekeepers. I sent emails that received automatic replies. I even drove to the Castellano corporate headquarters, twins in tow, only to be escorted out by security who believed I was another claimant trying to get to the billionaire. Victoria had built an impenetrable wall around her son. Until I saw the announcement for the upcoming Castellano Foundation Gala. A black tie fundraiser celebrating families affected by conflict. The irony was almost too much to bear. Tickets cost more than my monthly rent, but I had access to the emergency fund Victoria had established for the twins. 1 ticket, purchased under my maiden name. 1 evening to break through the barriers. 1 chance to show James the family he'd forgotten. Are we really going to meet Daddy? Lucas asked, his eyes wide with wonder as I explained our upcoming trip. We're going to try, I answered honestly. But Lucas, Lily, remember what we talked about? About Daddy's brain being hurt? Lily nodded solemnly. His memories got lost. That's right. So when we see him, he might not recognize us right away. And that's not his fault, okay? His brain is still healing. Will he love us anyway? Lucas's question broke my heart. I gathered them close, breathing in the scent of baby shampoo and innocence. Of course he will. You're part of him, even if he doesn't remember yet. As I held them, doubt crept through my mind. What if this confrontation backfired? What if seeing us did trigger a psychological crisis for James? What if Victoria was right, and I was selfishly risking his recovery? But then I looked at my beautiful, brave children who deserved more than stories about a ghost father, and my resolve hardened. We would go to the gala. We would face Victoria, face James, face whatever came next. And maybe, just maybe, we would reclaim what had been stolen from us all. The week before the gala passed in a blur of preparations and anxiety. I needed to look like I belonged in the world I'd once been, part of the world my children were born into, whether Victoria acknowledged them or not. My budget stretched to its breaking point for a midnight blue dress from a consignment shop, elegant enough for the occasion, but still woefully inadequate compared to the designer gowns that would fill that ballroom. I practiced walking in heels I hadn't worn since before the twins were born, my ankles wobbling from disuse. You look like a princess, Mommy, Lily gasped when I tried everything on. Lucas was less impressed. Why do you need fancy clothes to see Daddy? Doesn't he like regular clothes? How do you explain social warfare to a 3-year-old? That his grandmother had created a battlefield where appearance was armor, where I needed to look worthy of attention just to get past the front door? Sometimes, I explained instead, Grown-ups dress up for special parties. Like how you wear your dinosaur shirt for special days. The night before the gala, I sat on my bed surrounded by documents, our marriage certificate. The twins' birth certificates with James listed as father, photos of our wedding, ultrasound images Victoria had been present for. Evidence of a life together that had been systematically erased. My hands shook as I slipped everything into a folder. Would any of it matter if James couldn't remember me? Sleep evaded me that night. When morning came, dark circles shadowed my eyes, requiring makeup I rarely bothered with anymore. As I applied foundation, I studied my reflection. At 29, I still resembled the woman James had married. A little more tired, perhaps. My body forever changed by carrying twins. But my eyes remained the same. The eyes he once claimed were what made him fall in love at first sight across a crowded charity auction. Would those eyes trigger even a flicker of recognition? You arranged a sitter? My neighbor Elena asked, helping me fasten the clasp of a simple necklace, a wedding gift from James. Actually, I'm taking the twins with me. Elena's eyebrows shot up. To a black tie gala? Maya. They need to be there, I said firmly. They're the whole point. And you're sure this is the right approach? Confronting everyone publicly? No, I wasn't sure. Nothing about this situation came with guarantees or certainties. I've tried every private channel, I answered, smoothing Lily's dress. A simple but sweet navy blue that complemented my own. Victoria made sure those doors stayed closed. Lucas tugged at his clip-on tie, expression miserable. Do I have to wear this, Mommy? I knelt to his level, straightening the small tie. Just for a little while, buddy. Remember why we're doing this? His expression turned serious. To see Daddy because his brain forgot us, but his heart might remember. My throat tightened. That's right. The drive to the Castellano estate took nearly 2 hours. With each mile, my doubts multiplied. Victoria's warning about triggering James's trauma. The possibility of security removing us before we even saw him. The risk of traumatizing my own children if things went badly. Was I being selfish? Reckless? Desperate? Or was I finally standing up for the truth after 3 years of living someone else's carefully constructed lie? The estate appeared on the horizon, a sprawling mansion of stone and glass perched on manicured grounds. Floodlights illuminated the facade, while a line of luxury vehicles deposited guests at the grand entrance. Is that Daddy's house? Lily whispered, awe in her voice as she pressed her nose against the car window. It's your grandmother's house, I corrected gently. Where Daddy lives sometimes. It's bigger than our whole street, Lucas observed. I parked in the public lot, far from the valet stand where chauffeurs delivered guests in Bentleys and Rolls-Royces. My second-hand Honda looked painfully out of place. Remember what we practiced? I asked, helping the twins from their car seats. They nodded in unison. Stay close to Mommy, Lily recited. Don't talk to strangers unless Mommy says it's okay, Lucas added. And if anyone tries to take you away from me? Scream really loud, they chorused. I taught them that long before tonight, but the instruction carried new urgency now. Victoria had resources and influence I couldn't match. If she decided to separate me from my children? No. I wouldn't let that thought take root. We approached the entrance, my ticket clutched tightly in my hand. The security guard's gaze flicked from my face to the twins, his expression shifting from professional neutrality to uncertainty. Excuse me, ma'am, but this is an adults-only event. I'd anticipated this obstacle. The invitation doesn't specify that. And I couldn't secure childcare on short notice. I offered my most apologetic smile. They're very well behaved. He hesitated, then examined my ticket. Maya Carson. My heart skipped. Had Victoria flagged my name after all? But then he nodded, stepping aside. Enjoy your evening, Miss Carson. Relief flooded through me as we entered the grand foyer. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow prisms across marble floors, staff in crisp uniforms offered champagne from silver trays. Beautiful people in beautiful clothes engaged in beautiful, meaningless conversation. A world away from our small home with its second-hand furniture and carefully budgeted groceries. Stay close, I murmured to the twins, who walked beside me with wide eyes, taking in the opulence surrounding us. A string quartet played in the corner of the main ballroom. I recognized the piece Pachelbel's canon in D. James and I had danced to it at our wedding. The memory tightened my chest as I scanned the crowd, searching for familiar faces. So many guests, yet I recognized none. Victoria had replaced James's friends along with his wife, it seemed. "Where's Daddy?" Lucas asked too loudly. A nearby couple turned, curious expressions on their perfectly sculpted faces. "Soon," I promised, lowering my voice. "Remember, patience like we talked about." We found a relatively quiet corner to wait. According to the program I'd picked up at the entrance, Victoria's special announcement would happen at 9 o'clock. 20 minutes from now. My heartbeat accelerated as I caught sight of him across the room. James? My husband. He looked different, a small scar above his right eyebrow that hadn't been there before. His hair styled slightly differently. But his smile remained the same, lighting up his entire face as he spoke with an elderly couple. Beside him stood a woman I recognized from photos, Vanessa. Tall, elegant, perfect in every way Victoria would approve of. No visible baby bump yet, but her hand rested protectively over her stomach in that universal gesture of expectant mothers. The sight sent pain lancing through me. Not jealousy, something deeper. Grief for what should have been. What would have been, if not for Victoria's manipulation. "Is that him?" Lily whispered, following my gaze. "Is that our daddy?" I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. "He looks like Lucas," she observed with a child's simple honesty. She was right. The resemblance between father and son was unmistakable, the same profile, the same way of tilting their heads when curious. What would happen when James saw that resemblance for himself? The minutes crawled by. Waiters circulated with appetizers, the twins eyed longingly. "Just a little longer," I promised, though my own stomach was too knotted for food. At precisely 9 o'clock, the string quartet fell silent. Victoria Castellano ascended the small stage at the front of the ballroom, resplendent in deep burgundy silk that probably cost more than my car. "Friends, benefactors, honored guests," she began, her voice carrying effortlessly through the room. "Thank you for joining us tonight to support families affected by conflict around the world." The irony made my teeth clench. As many of you know, this cause holds special significance for our family. 3 years ago, we nearly lost my son, James, to violence overseas. Murmurs of sympathy rippled through the crowd. His recovery has been nothing short of miraculous. And now, we celebrate not only his return to health but a new chapter in the Castellano legacy. She gestured, and James stepped onto the stage, helping Vanessa up beside him. A staff member approached, carrying something small wrapped in a soft white blanket. My breath caught. They already had their baby? Victoria's words on the phone had implied Vanessa was still pregnant. "It gives me unparalleled joy," Victoria continued, her voice rich with emotion. "I knew to be perfectly rehearsed, to share this moment with all of you who have supported our family through challenge and triumph." She accepted the bundle from the staff member, cradling it with practiced care. "Tonight, it is my greatest joy to introduce you to the future of the Castellano legacy, my son's first child." First child. The words echoed in my mind, each repetition fueling something that had been building inside me for 3 years. Not grief. Not fear. Rage. Pure, clarifying rage at this woman who had stolen everything from me, my husband, my children's father, our rightful place in this family, and now stood proclaiming a falsehood to the world with absolute confidence. Before I fully processed my actions, I was moving. The twins clutched my hands, hurrying to keep pace as I approached the gilded double doors that led directly to the stage area. We reached them just as applause erupted throughout the ballroom. "Ready?" I whispered to my children. They nodded, solemn and trusting. I pushed the doors open. The weight of my 3-year-old twins pressed against my sides. Lily on my left, Lucas on my right, their small bodies clinging tightly as we stepped inside. The room fell silent. 300 people in designer gowns and custom tuxedos turned to stare at the woman in the too cheap dress holding 2 dark-haired children who looked exactly like the billionaire standing on that stage. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, reflecting off champagne glasses frozen halfway to painted lips. The string quartet's violins trailed off mid-note. And there, elevated above the crowd on a platform draped in white roses, stood Victoria Castellano holding an infant like a prize, her mouth still open from her grand announcement. Her eyes locked onto mine across the sea of silk and diamonds. I watched recognition flash across her face, followed by fury, then something I'd never seen in Victoria Castellano's eyes before, fear. "Hello, Victoria," I said, my voice cutting through the silence like glass. "Sorry, I'm late to the family reunion." I started walking forward. The crowd parted around us like the Red Sea, their whispers rising like a wave. My heels clicked against the marble floor, a sound I hadn't heard in 3 years. The last time I'd walked through a room of staring people, I'd been wearing black, and they'd been whispering about the tragic young widow who'd lost her billionaire husband in Yemen. Except he hadn't died in Yemen. He was standing right there, 20 feet away, staring at me with polite confusion, the expression you give a stranger, causing a scene at a party you're obligated to attend. James Castellano. My husband. The father of my children. The man who didn't remember I existed. Mama, there's so many people. Lily whispered, pressing tighter against my leg. I know, baby. Be brave. Just like we practiced. I am. Lucas looked up at the stage, his little face scrunched in concentration. Is that him? Is that Daddy? Every head in the room swiveled to look at James. I kept walking, kept moving forward, because if I stopped I might lose my nerve. Each step unlocked a memory I'd buried deep, tried to forget, failed to let go. James spinning me around our kitchen, laughing because I'd burned dinner again. James's hands cradling my face. You're going to be an amazing mother someday. James kissing my forehead before he left for the airport. 6 weeks. I'll be home before you know it. Victoria's voice, cold as ice. He's gone, Maya. James is dead. But he wasn't dead. He was alive. He'd been alive this whole time. And I'd buried him. Mourned him. Cried myself to sleep, clutching his pillow for 6 months straight. I'd given birth to his children alone, screaming his name in a hospital room while Victoria stood outside, already planning how to make us disappear. Security. Victoria's voice cracked through the silence. Security. Remove this woman immediately. 2 men in dark suits started moving toward me, but I spoke first, my voice loud enough for every phone camera now pointed at us to catch. My name is Maya Carson. 3 years ago, I was Maya Castellano. I stopped 10 feet from the stage, the twins still pressed against me. I was married to James Castellano for 2 years. And when he left on a humanitarian mission to Yemen, I was 12 weeks pregnant. The room erupted in gasps and whispers. James stepped forward, his face pale. I was told I was single. That I'd ended a relationship before the accident. My mother said, your mother told me you were dead. I looked directly at Victoria, letting 3 years of rage and grief and betrayal fuel my words. She came to my door with military officers and a death certificate. She showed me paperwork. She told me you'd been killed in an attack. She moved me away from everyone I knew and made me disappear. That's absurd. Victoria's voice was sharp, but I could hear the tremor underneath. James, this woman is clearly disturbed. I have birth certificates. I interrupted, reaching into my purse with one hand while keeping the other on Lucas. I pulled out the folded papers I'd carried like talismans for 2 weeks ever since I'd discovered the truth. Medical records. Our marriage license. Photos of our wedding that you had scrubbed from the internet. I looked at James, my voice breaking despite my best efforts. I have everything, James. Everything except you. His new wife Vanessa stepped closer to him, clutching his arm. The baby Victoria had been holding squirmed in a nanny's arms nearby. James? Vanessa's voice was small, uncertain. You were married before? You have children? I don't remember. James's voice cracked. He was staring at the twins like they were ghosts, his eyes moving from Lily's face to Lucas's, drinking in every detail. I don't remember any of this. I don't know what I expected in that moment. Recognition, perhaps. A flash of memory returning. The fairy tale ending where he looked into my eyes and remembered everything. Instead, there was only confusion and pain on the face I once knew better than my own. And suddenly, we weren't alone in our bubble of confrontation. The entire ballroom had become an audience to our family tragedy, hundreds of eyes watching, dozens of phones recording. Whispers rippled through the crowd, shock, scandal, delicious gossip for tomorrow's social media feeds. What price would my children pay for this public revelation? What trauma was I inflicting on all of us in the name of truth? For one terrible moment, I wondered if Victoria had been right, if my appearance would damage James's recovery, if my selfish need for acknowledgement was hurting the man I claimed to love. But then Lucas tugged free from my hand, taking a small, brave step toward the stage. Excuse me, he said, his small voice somehow carrying in the silent ballroom. Are you my daddy? The question, so simple, so devastating in its innocence, seemed to break something in James. He dropped to one knee at the edge of the platform, bringing himself level with his son. I I think I might be, he answered, his voice breaking. Time seemed to freeze in that moment, my son standing before his father, my daughter still clinging to my side, 300 strangers holding their collective breath. James's hands hovered near Lucas, trembling, as though afraid to touch him. You look like. He swallowed hard. You look exactly like my baby pictures. Mama showed us, Lucas said matter-of-factly. She has a whole box of pictures of you. Sometimes when she's sad, she looks at them. A flush crept up my neck. The unfiltered honesty of children, laying bare what adults spend years concealing. Lucas, I murmured, stepping forward. Mama says you got hurt really bad, Lucas continued, undeterred. That your brain needs time to remember us. He tilted his head, studying James with serious eyes. That's okay. We can wait. We're good at waiting. We waited 3 whole years, Lily added, finally finding her courage to join her brother. She looked up at James with fierce determination. Mama said you were in heaven. But you're not in heaven. You're right here. James made a sound that was half sob, half laugh. I'm right here, he echoed. So can we hug you? Lucas asked. Mama says we should always ask before hugging people. Cause of consent. A ripple of surprised laughter moved through the crowd. Even James smiled through his tears. Yes, he whispered. Yes, please. The twins wrapped their small arms around him, and I watched this billionaire, this man who commanded boardrooms and moved markets with a word, completely fall apart. His shoulders shook. His face pressed into their dark curls. His hands held them like they were made of glass and gold and every precious thing in the world. I'm sorry, he kept saying. I'm so sorry. I don't remember, but I'm sorry. It's okay, Daddy, Lily said, patting his cheek. We still love you. I had to look away, the moment too private and too painful and too perfect all at once. That's when I saw Victoria's face. She wasn't looking at her son meeting his children. She wasn't looking at the crowd or the cameras or the chaos erupting around us. She was looking at me. And in her eyes, I saw the truth I'd suspected but hadn't wanted to believe. She'd known exactly what she was doing. Every step. Every lie. Every manipulated moment. She'd stolen my husband. She'd erased me from his memory. She'd isolated me, paid me off, made me disappear. And she'd do it again if she could. DNA test. I said loudly, pulling everyone's attention back to me. Right now. In front of everyone. I want there to be no doubt. Victoria's expression hardened. This is hardly the venue. It seems like the perfect venue, I interrupted. All your friends, colleagues, donors. The press you invited. Let's settle this question once and for all. That won't be necessary, a new voice said. An older man in an expensive suit stepped forward from the crowd, someone I vaguely recognized from business news. I'm Robert Chen, the Castellano family attorney. And I have to say, Mrs. Castellano, excuse me, Miss Carson, this is quite the allegation you're making. It's not an allegation. It's the truth. Then you won't mind if we verify that truth legally. He pulled out his phone. I can have a medical team here in 20 minutes. We'll do paternity tests for both children. If what you're saying is true, then we'll need to discuss custody arrangements, financial support, and... I don't want money, I interrupted. I never wanted money. I just want my children to know their father. James slowly rose to his feet, keeping one hand on Lucas's shoulder. Why didn't you tell me? He asked, his voice barely audible above the murmurs of the crowd. When you found out I was alive, why didn't you tell me? The question hit me like ice water. In his mind, his fractured, manipulated memory, I was the one who had stayed away. I only found out 2 weeks ago, I said. I saw an article online. Before that, I thought you were dead. Your mother showed me a death certificate, James. She had military officers at my door. She showed me paperwork with official seals. His eyes darted to Victoria, confusion clouding his features. Mother? Is this true? Victoria's composure never wavered. Years of navigating high society had perfected her mask. James, darling, you're upset. This woman has clearly orchestrated quite a scene to manipulate you. Let's move this discussion somewhere private. No, James said, his voice suddenly firm. No more privacy. No more secrets. He turned back to me. You said we were married? I nodded, reaching into my purse again for the wedding photo. I'd brought the two of us beaming at each other on a beach at sunset, a simple ceremony with just a few close friends. 2 years. We met at a charity auction for literacy programs. You spilled red wine on my white dress and spent the entire night apologizing. Something flickered across his face, not recognition, exactly, but discomfort. Like hearing a song you can't quite place but know you've heard before. The accident, the attack. They said it affected my memory. Certain periods are just blank. His hand moved unconsciously to the scar on his forehead. The doctors said it might never come back. And your mother used that to her advantage, I said quietly. She told you what to remember and what to forget. Victoria stepped forward, her voice glacial. That is enough. Security, please remove this woman and these children from the premises. Don't you dare touch them, James said, his voice dangerous. The security guards froze, uncertain whose orders to follow. Vanessa had remained silent through the entire confrontation, one hand protectively covering her stomach, the other clutching the railing of the platform. Now she stepped forward, her voice surprisingly steady. James, you need to deal with this. She looked directly at me, then at the twins. If these are your children, they're not, Victoria interjected. This is clearly a scam, Vanessa. Some gold digger who's found children who resemble James and coached them to fitness. They have his eyes, Vanessa said simply. Exactly his eyes. The same shape, the same color. The same expression when they're thinking. She turned to her husband. You need to know the truth. A strange sort of gratitude washed through me for this woman, this rival who could have easily joined forces with Victoria but instead chose honesty. James looked from Vanessa to me to the twins, his expression lost. I don't know what's true anymore. I don't know who to believe. Then don't believe anyone, I said. Look at the evidence. The DNA test will prove they're yours biologically. The documentation I brought proves we were married. Your own eyes can see they look exactly like you. DNA testing can be compromised, Victoria said dismissively. Documents can be forged. As for resemblance, coincidences happen every day. James's expression hardened. Are you saying you don't want me to know the truth, Mother? I'm saying I want to protect you from manipulation. Victoria's voice rose, the first crack in her perfect facade. From women who will use any means to access your fortune. I laughed, a short, bitter sound. Your fortune? For 3 years, I've worked 60-hour weeks designing logos and websites to make ends meet. I've clipped coupons and bought second-hand clothes and chosen between electricity and groceries at the end of tight months. If I wanted your money, I would have sued the Castellano estate the minute these twins were born. Then what do you want? James asked quietly. The question hung in the air between us. What did I want? I looked at my children, our children, standing beside the father they'd never known. I looked at James, this man who had once been my entire world, now a stranger with familiar eyes. I want you to know they exist. I finally said, my voice breaking. I want them to know you exist as more than stories I tell at bedtime. I want the truth, after 3 years of living a lie. Something in my words seemed to reach him. He nodded slowly, then turned to the family attorney. Call that medical team. Right now. And when the results come back, I want everyone to hear them. James, be reasonable. Victoria began. Reasonable? James's laugh was hollow. Was it reasonable to tell me I was single when apparently I had a wife? Was it reasonable to let me believe I had no children when I had twins? What else have you kept from me, Mother? What else have you decided I didn't need to remember? Victoria's lips pressed into a thin line. Everything I've done has been to protect you. To ensure your recovery. By erasing people from my life? By replacing them with alternatives you approved of? He glanced at Vanessa, pain flashing across his face. I'm sorry. I didn't know. Vanessa nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. Neither did I. The medical team arrived with remarkable efficiency, the power of the Castellano name making the impossible immediate. They set up in a side room, away from the main gala, though most guests lingered, riveted by the unfolding drama. Simple cheek swabs, the lead technician explained. Quick and painless. One by one, they collected samples from James, from Lily, from Lucas. They worked with practiced efficiency, explaining they were running rapid DNA analysis. Preliminary results in about 2 hours. Full lab confirmation within 48 hours. While we waited, the gala continued in strained fashion. Guests pretended to discuss the charity's mission while stealing glances at our family drama. Victoria held court with her closest allies, no doubt spinning damage control. Vanessa had retreated to a quiet corner with her baby and what appeared to be her parents. James sat with the twins, asking them quiet questions. What's your favorite color? Do you like dinosaurs? Can you count to 10? Lucas proudly counted to 20. Lily showed him the small stuffed rabbit she'd brought in her pocket for bravery. I watched from across the room, emotions warring within me. Relief that the truth was finally emerging. Rage at Victoria's manipulation. Grief for the 3 years we'd lost. And beneath it all, a trembling uncertainty about what came next. Vanessa approached me, still holding her baby, the child Victoria had announced as the first grandchild. "How long were you married?" she asked quietly. I looked at her, this woman who'd taken my place, and tried to find anger. But all I saw was another person caught in Victoria's web. 2 years, I said. We met at a charity event. He spilled wine on my dress and spent the whole night apologizing. We were married 6 months later. He doesn't remember any of it? No. The doctor said his memory loss is selective. Traumatic brain injury combined with psychological factors. He remembers his childhood, his business, his education. But large chunks of his adult life are just gone. And Victoria told him you'd broken up? Apparently. She showed him photos of you. Told him you were his girlfriend before the accident. That you'd been waiting for him. Vanessa's laugh was bitter. I met James 8 months after he came back. His mother introduced us at a fundraiser. She said he'd been through something terrible and needed someone stable, someone from a good family. She looked down at her baby. I thought I was helping him heal. I didn't know I was helping her replace someone. It's not your fault. Isn't it? She met my eyes. I married a man who already had a wife. I gave his mother a grandchild when he already had 2 children who needed him. I played right into her hands. Before I could respond, Robert Chen stepped into the room. Results are back, he said. It's fast-track DNA testing, but highly accurate. The lab is prepared to testify to the validity if needed. Everyone stood. James picked up Lucas instinctively, keeping Lily close. Well? Victoria demanded, her voice sharp. Robert looked at James. Congratulations. You have twins. Lily and Lucas are definitely your biological children, 99.9% certainty. The room stayed silent for a long moment. Then James turned to his mother, and I saw something I'd never seen in his face in all the years I'd known him. Cold, absolute fury. You told me she didn't exist, he said quietly. You told me my life before the accident was empty. Meaningless. You said I was building something new, something better. He looked down at Lily and Lucas. You kept my children from me. I was protecting you. Victoria's mask finally cracked. That girl was nothing, James. She came from nothing. She had nothing to offer except love? I stepped forward. Except loyalty? Except the fact that she was carrying your grandchildren when you looked her in the eye and told her their father was dead? Victoria's face twisted. You weren't strong enough for this family. You would have held him back, dragged him down with your sentimentality and your weakness. I did what was necessary to protect the Castellano legacy. The legacy? James's voice rose. Mother, I have 3-year-old children who grew up without a father because you decided they weren't good enough for your legacy. They're being raised in poverty by a woman with no pedigree, no connections, no... They're being raised by their mother, James said. A mother who loved them enough to raise them alone. Who protected them when she thought I was dead. Who came here tonight knowing she'd face all of this, because they deserved to know their father. The crowd that had gathered around us shifted uncomfortably. This was no longer entertaining society drama. This was a family being torn apart and potentially rebuilt before their eyes. Victoria seemed to remember her audience suddenly. She straightened, smoothing her expression into something more controlled. We'll discuss this privately, she said. James, you're clearly overwhelmed. The doctors warned about introducing too many stressors during your recovery. No more private discussions, James said firmly. No more secrets. He looked down at the twins, who were watching the adults with wide, confused eyes. I've missed 3 years with my children. I won't miss another day. He turned to me, his expression a complex mixture of grief, anger, and determination. I'm sorry. I don't remember you. I wish I did. But I believe you. And I want to know my children. Those simple words, I believe you, broke something inside me. After 3 years of being erased, being forgotten, being replaced, someone finally acknowledged my truth. Tears spilled down my cheeks as I nodded. They want to know you too. Victoria's voice cut through the moment. This changes nothing legally. The custody agreements, the financial arrangements, all of it stays in place until proper legal proceedings. The family attorney cleared his throat. Actually, Mrs. Castellano, the situation is quite complex. If Miss Carson and Mr. Castellano were legally married, and there was never a divorce, technically their marriage still stands. The implication hung in the air. James looked from me to Vanessa, horror dawning on his face. Are you saying that your marriage to Miss Pierce may not be legally valid? The attorney confirmed. If your previous marriage was never properly dissolved. Vanessa pressed a hand to her mouth, swaying slightly. Her mother rushed forward to steady her. This is preposterous, Victoria snapped. James was declared dead. There was a death certificate. Which you apparently fabricated, the attorney said grimly. That's fraud, Mrs. Castellano. Potentially criminal fraud. Pa. For the first time, real fear flickered across Victoria's face. Not just the fear of social embarrassment or losing control, but the fear of genuine consequences. James closed his eyes briefly, as if trying to process the avalanche of revelations. When he opened them, he looked directly at the twins. I'm sorry this is all so confusing, he said gently. I'm still trying to understand everything myself. But I want you both to know something important. You are my children. And even though my memory is broken, I'm going to do everything I can to be your father from this moment forward. Lucas studied him seriously. Do you promise? I promise, James said, his voice thick with emotion. Pinky promise? Lily held out her tiny finger. James linked his pinky with hers, a smile breaking through his tears. Pinky promise. It was such a simple gesture, this billionaire making a pinky promise with a daughter he'd just discovered. Yet, in that moment, it felt more binding than any legal document, more powerful than any DNA test. The first real step toward healing what Victoria had broken. The rest of the evening unfolded in a blur of arrangements and awkward introductions. Robert Chen transformed a private study into an impromptu conference room, where a team of attorneys appeared with tablets and concerned expressions. Victoria disappeared briefly, returning with her own legal counsel, a sharp-eyed woman whose reputation for ruthlessness preceded her. The gala continued elsewhere in the mansion, though most guests had sensed the evening's charitable purpose was now secondary to the family drama unfolding behind closed doors. James had been quiet since the DNA results, watching the twins with an expression of wonder and loss. I recognized that expression. I'd worn it myself in the hospital after their birth, marveling at their perfect faces while grieving the husband who would never see them. Except he was seeing them now, 3 years too late. We need to discuss immediate arrangements, Robert Chen said, his voice steady and practical. Miss Carson, where are you staying tonight? We drove in for the evening. I hadn't planned beyond that. The truth was, I couldn't afford a hotel in this part of the state. That's unacceptable, James said suddenly. It's nearly 11. The children should be in bed, not driving 2 hours back. We have guest suites, Victoria offered smoothly. Maya and the children can... No, James and I spoke in unison. His eyes met mine, a moment of perfect understanding between strangers who once shared everything. I don't want them here, James continued. Not with you, Mother. Victoria flinched as though he'd struck her. James, be reasonable. I have a penthouse downtown, James said, turning to me. I keep it for late work nights. It's empty, fully furnished. You and the twins can stay there tonight, and tomorrow we can figure out everything else. The offer surprised me. Are you sure? It's the least I can do. He glanced at the twins, who were fighting sleep on a leather sofa. Lily's head drooping against Lucas's shoulder. They shouldn't have to suffer more disruption because of adult problems. I nodded, grateful for his understanding. An hour later, a driver delivered us to a gleaming high-rise in the heart of downtown. The penthouse occupied the entire top floor, a space 5 times the size of our small house, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering breathtaking city views. Whoa, Lucas whispered, momentarily energized by the spectacular nightscape. Look at all the lights, Mommy. Pretty. Lily agreed sleepily. I helped them change into the spare clothes I'd packed, tucked them into a massive guest bed, and sat with them until their breathing deepened into sleep. Their innocent faces relaxed in slumber, unaware of how profoundly their world had changed today. Would they remember this night years from now? Would they recall the tension, the anger, the moment they first met their father? Or would the adult complexities fade, leaving only the memory of a promise made? A soft knock drew me from my thoughts. I opened the bedroom door to find James standing in the hallway, his tie removed, jacket discarded, looking as exhausted as I felt. "They're asleep?" he asked. I nodded. "They crashed as soon as their heads hit the pillow. It's been an overwhelming day. For everyone." He gestured toward the living area. "Can we talk?" We settled on opposite ends of a sleek sectional sofa. Neither of us spoke for a long moment, the weight of 3 lost years hanging between us. "I keep trying to remember you," he finally said, his voice low. "Searching for anything, your smile, your voice, our wedding. But there's nothing. Just blank spaces where you should be." The pain in his admission twisted in my chest. "The doctors told you it might never come back?" He nodded. "Traumatic brain injury combined with post-traumatic stress. They said some memories might return over time, others." He shrugged helplessly. "They're just gone." "I'm sorry." "You're sorry?" James gave a hollow laugh. "I should be apologizing to you. For not remembering. For not questioning my mother more. For letting 3 years pass while you raised our children alone. You didn't know." The absolution felt strange on my lips, forgiving him for something that wasn't his fault. But I should have known. Something should have felt wrong. His hands clenched. All those blank spaces in my memories, I accepted the explanations too easily. Let others fill in the gaps. Your mother is very convincing." I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. "She had me believing you were dead, complete with official-looking documentation and military witnesses." James's expression darkened. "The officers, were they actually military?" "They had uniforms, badges. Looking back, I don't know if they were real or actors she hired. I was 26, pregnant, and had just been told my husband was dead. I wasn't exactly questioning credentials. And the death certificate? Looked official to me. But I was in shock. I might have accepted a crayon drawing as proof if it came with an American flag and a solemn handshake." Despite the heaviness of the conversation, James laughed a short, surprised sound. I'd forgotten that about him, how he appreciated dark humor in difficult moments. "You always did that," he said, then froze, eyes widening slightly. "Did what?" "Made jokes when things got too intense." He frowned. "Wait. Did you?" "I don't. I'm not sure if that's a real memory or if I'm just..." He trailed off, frustration evident in his expression. "I do use humor as a defense mechanism," I confirmed gently. "You used to say it was what kept you sane during board meetings, imagining what sarcastic comment I'd make about the participants." He studied my face. "What else? Tell me something else about us." The request caught me off guard. "Like what?" "Anything. How we met. Where we lived. What we fought about. I want to know what I've forgotten." So I told him. About the charity auction where he'd spilled wine on my dress and spent 2 hours helping me find a stain remover. About our first date at a hole-in-the-wall Vietnamese restaurant he'd discovered during college. About the tiny apartment we'd shared before his promotion, with pipes that clanked all night and neighbors who practiced operatic singing at dawn. "You proposed at the Botanical Gardens," I continued, memories flowing freely now. "Not with some elaborate setup. We were just walking, and you suddenly stopped and said you couldn't imagine walking through life with anyone else. You had the ring in your pocket because you'd been carrying it for weeks, waiting for the perfect moment." "What did it look like?" "The ring. Nothing like what Victoria would have chosen. It was an antique Art Deco, with a center sapphire instead of a diamond. You said it reminded you of my eyes." James listened intently, occasionally closing his eyes as if trying to visualize the scenes I described. Sometimes he'd nod slightly, as though something resonated on a level beyond conscious memory. "And the twins? Tell me about them. About the pregnancy, their birth. Everything I missed." This was harder, sharing the experience of bringing our children into the world without him. But I told him. About the morning sickness that lasted all day. About discovering we were having twins during the 20-week ultrasound. About how Lucas was born first, screaming his displeasure to the world, while Lily arrived 7 minutes later, quietly observant. They were tiny preemies, often are with twins. But healthy. Perfect. My voice caught. "Lucas has your dimple on the right cheek. Lily has your exact laugh. They both hate green peppers and love thunderstorms." And I missed it all. The anguish in his voice was palpable. "You're here now," I offered, though the words felt inadequate against 3 years of absence. "Because you found me?" He met my gaze directly. "Thank you for not giving up. For bringing them to me, even when it meant facing all of this." The gratitude in his eyes was almost unbearable. I looked away, unable to hold the weight of it. "I didn't do it for you," I admitted. "I did it for them." They deserve to know their father exists. And now they do. He hesitated. What happens next, Maya? Legally, logistically, practically, what happens next? It was the question I'd been avoiding since the moment I discovered he was alive. A question with no simple answer. I don't know, I said honestly. You have another family now. A wife legally questionable or not who's expecting your child. I didn't come here to disrupt all of that. But that's exactly what's happened. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so achingly familiar it made my chest tighten. The lawyers are already discussing the validity of my marriage to Vanessa, custody arrangements for the twins, potential charges against my mother for fraud. I don't want to press charges against Victoria, I interrupted. James looked stunned. After what she did? Maya, she faked my death. She lied to you, to me, to everyone. She deliberately kept me from my children. And what would prosecuting her accomplish? More trauma for the twins? Endless legal battles? Media attention dissecting our lives? I shook my head. I want Victoria to acknowledge what she did. I want her to apologize to me, to the twins, to you. But prison? A public trial? That serves no one. And he studied me with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. You haven't changed, he finally said. You're still prioritizing peace over justice. The observation so accurate it could only come from someone who once knew me intimately left me speechless. Was that something we disagreed about? He asked, noting my reaction. Peace versus justice? I nodded slowly. You always pushed for what was right, regardless of consequences. I tended to choose the path with least collateral damage. We balanced each other. And now? Now I'm a mother. My priorities are different. I'll sacrifice justice, pride, even truth if it means protecting Lily and Lucas from pain. The silence that followed felt weighted with unspoken questions. What would this mean for us? Could we find our way back to each other after everything? Did we even want to? I should check on the twins, I said, finally rising from the sofa. James stood as well. Of course. It's late, you must be exhausted. It's been a day. Maya, he said as I turned toward the hallway. Tomorrow morning, I'd like to have breakfast with them. If that's okay with you. Nothing overwhelming, just getting to know them better. They'd like that. I managed a small smile. Lucas always has cereal with exactly 3 sliced strawberries. Lily prefers toast with the crusts cut off, but she'll only admit that when Lucas isn't listening. She thinks it makes her seem babyish. James smiled, absorbing these details about his children with visible hunger. Thank you for telling me that. For telling me everything. I nodded and retreated to the guest room, where my sleeping children lay oblivious to the complexities surrounding them. Tomorrow would bring attorneys, custody discussions, confrontations with Victoria, explanations to Vanessa. Tomorrow would require decisions about the future, where we would live, how we would co-parent, whether James's memories would ever return. But tonight, watching my children sleep peacefully in their father's home, I allowed myself to feel something I hadn't experienced in 3 years. Hope. Hope that despite everything Victoria had stolen from us, she hadn't managed to destroy the most important thing, the connection between a father and his children. A connection that transcended memory, overcoming even the most determined efforts to sever it. The next morning arrived too quickly, dawn light filtering through unfamiliar curtains. For a moment, I forgot where we were, reaching for my phone on a nightstand that wasn't there. Then it all came flooding back. The gala. The confrontation. James. The twins stirred beside me, Lily's small hand patting my face. Mommy? Where are we? At your daddy's house, remember? I kept my voice light, watching her expression carefully. Her eyes widened. The big house with all the windows? That's right. Lucas sat up, hair standing in all directions. Is Daddy here now? Can we see him? He is, and yes, in fact, he wants to have breakfast with you. Lucas scrambled out of bed immediately. I need to brush my teeth and fix my hair. He ran his hands frantically through his bedhead, making it worse. I couldn't help laughing. Slow down, buddy. Daddy will still be there after you're properly dressed. As I helped them prepare for breakfast, a question tugged at my mind. How would they address the complex reality of their father's 2 families? Would they ask about Vanessa, about the baby Victoria had been holding? Would they sense the tension between the adults in their lives? Children absorbed more than adults realized, picked up on subtleties, emotional currents, unspoken conflicts. How would all of this affect them in the weeks, months, years to come? I pushed the worry aside, focusing on the immediate task of preparing two excited 3-year-olds for their first real conversation with their father. When we emerged from the bedroom, we found James in the kitchen, surrounded by grocery bags, a determined expression on his face. I wasn't sure what they liked, he explained, looking almost shy. So I got options. The counter displayed a veritable breakfast buffet: cereals, fruits, pastries, yogurt, juice boxes, tiny pancakes, and what appeared to be 3 different types of bread for toast. You didn't need to do all this, I said, touched by the effort. I did, actually. His eyes met mine briefly before returning to the twins. I've missed 3 years of breakfasts. I have a lot to make up for. Lucas approached the spread with awe. Are all these for us? Just for you, James confirmed, crouching down to the twins' level. I heard you like cereal with exactly 3 strawberries. Is that right? Lucas's face lit up. You know about that? Your mom told me. And Lily, he turned to her, still hanging back shyly, I heard you might like toast with no crusts. I have a special crust cutter if you want to try it. Lily's eyes widened. You do? I do. Want to see how it works? She nodded, taking a tentative step toward him. And just like that, over cereal with precisely counted strawberries and elaborately decrusted toast, James began the process of becoming their father, one breakfast ritual at a time. The journey ahead would be complicated. Legal battles loomed. Relationships needed redefining. Trust required rebuilding. But watching James carefully cut Lily's toast into heart shapes while Lucas explained the critical importance of not letting cereal get too soggy, I saw something beautiful emerging from Victoria's calculated destruction. A family finding its way back to each other, piece by piece, memory or no memory. The days following the gala blended into weeks of meetings, arrangements, and adjustments. James secured a temporary apartment near our home, allowing him to see the twins regularly without disrupting their routines. He approached fatherhood with the same focus he applied to business acquisitions, researching child development, learning their preferences, memorizing their schedules. You don't need to try so hard, I told him one afternoon as he arrived with educational toys specifically matched to their developmental milestones. They already adore you. I want to get it right, he replied, watching the twins play in our modest backyard. I've missed so much already. The legal complexities of our situation proved as tangled as expected. James's marriage to Vanessa was indeed invalid. Our union had never been legally dissolved. The revelation created a storm of tabloid speculation and painful conversations. I found myself in the strange position of advocating for Vanessa, who was 5 months pregnant and deserved stability. The lawyers can expedite our divorce, I suggested during one of our co-parenting discussions. Then you can legally remarry before the baby comes. James's expression turned complex. Is that what you want? A divorce? The question caught me off guard. I thought it was the obvious solution. Nothing about this situation is obvious, Maya. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Vanessa and I are figuring things out. After everything that's happened, we're both questioning what our relationship was built on. Victoria's manipulation? Partly. But also who I've been since the accident, this version of myself with half a memory, living a life someone else designed. He looked away. Vanessa deserves someone who chose her for the right reasons, not because my mother orchestrated it. I didn't know how to respond. Was he suggesting there might be another path forward? One that included me? The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. Victoria remained a complicated presence in our evolving family dynamic. After the initial shock wore off, she attempted damage control, first with legal threats, then with tearful justifications about protecting her son, finally with reluctant acknowledgement of her wrongdoing. I believed I was doing what was best for the Castellano name, she told me during a tense meeting mediated by attorneys. I've since realized I was wrong. Deeply wrong. The apology, while carefully crafted, seemed genuine. But forgiveness would take longer for all of us. James established boundaries with his mother that shocked the society circles they inhabited. He removed her from the company board, restricted her access to family accounts, and required supervised visits with the twins. She's still their grandmother, he explained when I questioned this last decision. I won't erase her from their lives the way she tried to erase you from mine. But I won't let her manipulate them either. His wisdom surprised me. Despite everything, despite his missing memories, James was still fundamentally the man I'd married, thoughtful, fair, determined to do what was right even when it was difficult. Some things, it seemed, trauma couldn't erase. Daddy, Watch this. Lucas called, performing an elaborate somersault on the playground grass. We'd established a Sunday routine, the four of us spending the day together at different parks, museums, or child-friendly restaurants. James applauded enthusiastically. Amazing. Olympic-level tumbling. My turn, my turn. Lily insisted, attempting her own version that ended with her sprawled in giggles. Even better. James scooped her up, spinning her around until she squealed with delight. I watched from a nearby bench, my chest tight with emotions I couldn't fully name. Joy at seeing my children so happy. Grief for the years they'd lost with their father. Anxiety about the future still taking shape around us. And something else, something I wasn't ready to acknowledge yet. James joined me while the twins continued playing within our sight. They're incredible, he said softly. So different from each other, yet so connected. They've always been that way. Even before they were born, they seemed to communicate somehow. The ultrasound technician said she'd never seen twins position themselves so considerately toward each other. James smiled. Lucas makes space for Lily's quieter nature, and she brings out his gentler side. You've noticed that already? I notice everything about them. His gaze remained on the twins. I'm trying to make up for lost time. A comfortable silence settled between us. These moments had become more frequent lately, spaces where words weren't necessary, where the painful past and uncertain future faded, leaving just the present. I remembered something yesterday, James said suddenly. About us. My heart skipped. What was it? Nothing significant. Just a fragment. We were in a kitchen, not the one in the penthouse, somewhere smaller. You were laughing. There was flour on your face. He frowned, concentrating. I think we were baking? Probably failing at baking, I corrected, a smile tugging at my lips. We tried making bread from scratch once. The recipe called for kneading the dough for 10 minutes, but we got distracted and forgot about it for an hour. What happened? It overexpanded and collapsed. We ended up ordering pizza and eating raw cookie dough instead. James laughed, a genuine, unguarded sound. That sounds right. The memory had that feeling to it, lighthearted, comfortable. The doctors said this might happen, right? Fragments returning? He nodded. Random, disconnected pieces. They said not to force it. Just let them surface naturally. His eyes met mine. Being around you helps. You're a bridge to those missing years. The admission hung between us, an acknowledgement of my role in his recovery, but also something more intimate. A recognition of connection that transcended memory. What does Vanessa think about all this? I asked, needing to acknowledge the complexity of our situation. James sighed. She's moved back to her parents' estate in Connecticut. She needs space to consider her options. And the baby? We've agreed to co-parent, regardless of what happens with our relationship. I've learned the hard way what happens when children grow up without both parents. His expression turned serious. Maya, I don't want to pressure you. What happened between us, what was taken from us, it's complicated beyond words. But I need you to know that these memories returning, spending time with you and the twins, it's made me realize something. I held my breath, afraid of what might come next. Even without remembering our past, I can see why I fell in love with you. His voice softened. Your strength. Your compassion. The way you protected our children. The way you've handled this impossible situation with grace I can't fathom. James? I'm not asking for anything, he continued quickly. I know we can't just pick up where we left off. Too much has happened. But I want you to know that door isn't closed for me. If someday, when the dust settles and we've figured out this co-parenting arrangement, if you wanted to explore what might still exist between us. He left the sentence unfinished, an open invitation rather than a demand. Before I could respond, Lucas came running over, Lily close behind. Daddy, Mommy, can we get ice cream? Please? His eyes were wide with hope. Lily wants chocolate and I want rainbow. We haven't had lunch yet, I reminded them. Ice cream can be lunch? James suggested with a conspiratorial wink to the twins. Just this once? I rolled my eyes, but couldn't suppress my smile. The three of you against me isn't fair. Majority rules. Lucas declared triumphantly. That's not actually how family decisions work. I corrected. How do they work, then? James asked, genuinely curious. I looked at him, at this man relearning how to be a husband, a father, himself, and felt something warm unfurl in my chest. They work through compromise, communication, and occasional ice cream before lunch, I conceded, earning cheers from all three. As we walked toward the ice cream stand, Lily slipped her small hand into mine, while Lucas raced ahead with James. "Mommy?" she whispered. "Yes, baby? Is Daddy staying with us now? Forever?" The question held so many layers. She wasn't just asking about physical presence, but emotional permanence. About trust and certainty in a world that had already taught her, too young, that people could disappear. "Daddy will always be your father," I answered carefully. "And he'll always be in your life. The details are still being worked out, but that part won't change." She nodded, processing this with the seriousness only a 3-year-old philosopher could muster. "I think he still loves you," she said simply. "He looks at you the way Prince Eric looks at Ariel." I laughed softly at the Disney comparison. "It's complicated, sweetheart. Grown-ups always say that," she sighed dramatically. Maybe she was right. Maybe adults overcomplicated things that children saw with perfect clarity. Ahead of us, James had lifted Lucas onto his shoulders, both of them laughing as they studied the ice cream flavors through the stand's window. The sight made my heart ache with a bittersweet mixture of joy and longing, a glimpse of what should have been our normal for the past 3 years. What might, perhaps, become our normal moving forward. Autumn painted the trees in fiery colors as our new reality took shape. James found a house 10 minutes from ours, close enough for the twins to move easily between homes, far enough to give everyone space to adjust. Victoria, after extensive family therapy sessions, began the slow process of making amends. She funded a foundation supporting families affected by traumatic brain injuries, donated to amnesia research, and most importantly, acknowledged her grandchildren with genuine affection. "She's trying," James observed after she sent the twins handmade quilts, each square representing a story from the Castellano family history. "Not always successfully, but genuinely trying." "People can change," I agreed cautiously. "Even Victoria Castellano." Vanessa gave birth to a healthy baby boy in late October. Despite the complicated circumstances, she invited me to the hospital, a gesture of unusual grace that spoke volumes about her character. "He's beautiful," I told her truthfully, looking at the newborn with James's dark eyes. "Congratulations." "Thank you," she replied softly. "For everything. For your kindness when you had every reason to hate me." "You were as much a victim of Victoria's manipulation as I was," I said. "Besides, our children are siblings. We're family now, however unconventional." The irony wasn't lost on either of us that Victoria's elaborate scheme to create the perfect Castellano legacy had instead produced a blended family that defied every society convention she valued. James's memories continued returning in fragments, random moments from our marriage appearing without warning or context. A beach vacation where I'd gotten terribly sunburned. An argument about wall colors in our first apartment. The night we discovered I was pregnant. "It's like watching scenes from a movie starring people who look like us," he explained one evening as we sat on my porch after putting the twins to bed. "I recognize us, but the emotional connection feels secondhand." "That must be frustrating," I said. He nodded. "But there's an unexpected silver lining." "What's that?" "Getting to fall in love with you twice." The statement caught me off guard. We'd been careful around this topic, maintaining friendly co-parenting while the divorce from our still valid marriage proceeded, giving everyone space to adjust to our complex family arrangement. "James, I know the timing isn't right," he continued. "There are still too many moving pieces, too many people affected by our decisions. But I've been watching you these past months, your patience with the twins, your kindness toward Vanessa, even your willingness to forgive my mother." He turned to face me directly. "And I've realized something important. Whether my memories fully return or not doesn't actually matter. The man I am now, with or without those memories, is still drawn to you, still respects you, still wants to know you better." I took a deep breath, my heart racing. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" "I'm saying that when the dust settles, when the legal matters are resolved and everyone has adjusted to our new normal, I'd like to take you to dinner. A real first date. Or technically, a second first date." A laugh escaped me. "That's very logically romantic." "I've been told I have a way with words," he smiled. "So, what do you think?" What did I think? The question echoed in my mind as I considered everything we'd been through, everything still ahead of us. 3 years ago, I'd lost the man I loved to a lie. I'd grieved him, raised his children without him, built a life from the ashes of what Victoria had burned. I'd learned to stand alone, to find strength I never knew I possessed. Could I risk my heart again? Risk the stability I'd created for my children? Risk the careful balance of our new co-parenting relationship? But then, wasn't life about risks? About second chances disguised as impossible situations? I think, I said slowly, that dinner sounds nice. Eventually. His smile, the one that had first captivated me years ago at a charity auction, spread across his face. Eventually works for me. I've learned patience these past months. The porch swing creaked gently beneath us as we sat in comfortable silence, watching fireflies blink in the gathering dusk. A memory surfaced, not James's recovered memory, but one of my own. Our first apartment had a balcony where we'd sit just like this, planning our future together, imagining children and careers and growing old side by side. Life had taken a detour so dramatic no fiction writer would have dared invent it. Yet somehow, through pain and perseverance, we'd found our way back to a moment not unlike that one, two people contemplating possibility, watching light emerge in darkness. The front door opened, and Lily's small figure appeared in her pajamas. "Mommy? Daddy?" Lucas said, "There's monsters under the bed again." James stood immediately. "Monster patrol duty calls. I've been practicing my monster banishing technique." He followed Lily inside, his voice drifting back as he explained the scientific principles of monster repellent to our daughter. I remained on the porch a moment longer, savoring the quiet joy of this ordinary moment that had once seemed impossible. Our path forward remained uncertain. The wounds Victoria had inflicted would take time to fully heal. Trust between James and me, between all the adults in this complicated family, would need rebuilding brick by careful brick. But watching James through the window, sitting on the twins' bedroom floor, flashlight in hand as he solemnly checked under beds and inside closets, I felt something I'd lost 3 years ago. Hope. Not just for survival, but for happiness. For a future where scars remained but no longer defined us. For a love that could be reborn, different but perhaps stronger for having endured its trial by fire. Sometimes life gives second chances in the strangest packaging. Sometimes what's broken gets rebuilt into something new and beautiful. Sometimes what seems like an ending becomes, against all odds, a beginning. And sometimes, a woman who walks into a ballroom to confront her past ends up reclaiming her future instead. Thank you for joining me for this emotional journey of love, loss, and redemption. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Life's greatest trials often lead to our most profound transformations. What challenging chapter in your life ultimately led to unexpected blessings? Until next time, this is Mr. Ashburn Golden Narratives, reminding you that even the most broken paths can lead to beautiful destinations.